Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Two Men and a Bible again.
It's that time of the year.
That time of the year.
Yeah, when we are going to be almost going to Christmas Eve programs.
Yeah, do you notice, is there something just different in the air this time of year?
There is.
I don't know, I call it the spirit of giving or something like that. It just seems like people are more giving of their time and their, focus.
This is terrible, but we are actually taping this before Thanksgiving, so it's good. Actually,
you shouldn't have told them that.
Yeah, Thanksgiving is tomorrow.
You kind of popped the balloon there.
Yeah, I did, but it's just the way it is. But at the same time, I'm seeing Christmas lights everywhere.
Well, I'm already getting, tapped by the spirit of giving, and the whole. The local grocery stores have already started their Taste of the Holidays, and that's a big thing for my whole family. We like to go walk around the grocery stores and taste all the different foods.
And this keeps growing and growing.
Yeah, Joel's pointing to his stomach. Yeah, not mine, of course.
No.
We moved
so
from
sad.
dad bods to grandpa bods. But anyway, this is 2 Men in a Bible, everybody. I'm Jeff.
I'm Joel.
And it is our topic, the spirit of giving. And Joel, you mentioned a neat thing that a family was doing just before the show. You want to share that?
Yeah, there's a family where I come from, and it's a very large family, very, very large family.
How many kids?
They have 6 kids, but they also have
lots of
at least 30 grandkids.
Oh,
and
nice.
Things are pretty hopping when they
gosh.
get.
Yeah, I love a home like that.
Yeah,
when Christmas time.
So they get together, and there's actually 2 families now that I think about it that do this. They pool their money together that they were going to spend on their family, on their kids, and so on. And instead of giving the money, to gifts for their family, and they're all pretty excited about this. I mean, it's not like people are disappointed they're not going to get gifts. They may get 1 gift each, but not the 4 or 10 that families do. And they pool it all together, and then they give it towards a project or something that they are very passionate about. And in my case, the reason I'm bringing this up is I have in Park River. By the way, if you're interested in trees, come to Park River, because I have an arboretum in Park River. It's about 300 different kinds of trees and probably 200 different kinds of bushes.
And they're all native.
No,
okay.
They're not native.
Okay.
What they are, though, is able to be growing in our climate.
Oh, okay.
So I'm forever looking for all kinds of different trees.
Sure.
So they're not native.
Gotcha. Well, that's good. Well, I kind of have a theory about the family giving, which is a cool. Oh,
I just have to say that these people have given towards that project that I've done.
Oh, okay.
So because they're passionate about it too,
yeah.
And that's why. But there's all kinds of reasons to give to countless different organizations that do good works.
And a lot of people, I think, have different feelings about Christmas, especially Christians. Some are for it, some are not so for it. Some are for obviously the nativity, and others are more for Santa Claus. Some are for both. People have a lot of opinions. It certainly is a season of where you can point out the materialism. People just, buy. But really, I like to focus this show, and you might be listening just before or just after Christmas itself on this show, because it records both ways. But I think we've all noticed there is a spirit in the air. And I think I got a theory about that.
Go for it.
And I think if you think about what Christmas is, what it truly means, what it really represents is the fact that the supernatural came to the natural.
Hmm.
The Word became flesh. God became a baby. And, if you think about that interaction between the supernatural world, which we here at Two Men in the Bible believe is a real world. It's not a fantasy. It's not a myth.
It's more real than we are.
It's more real than we are. But, and that supernatural world existed with the Father, Son, Holy Spirit forever. I mean, not just in the future forever, but
in the past.
When you ponder that alone, doesn't it make kind of your brain just want to blow up? I mean, we can't comprehend infinity, just that God has always been.
I can sort of comprehend infinity into the future.
Yes.
I've never been able to.
Yeah, but when you go back to the beginning, like that's when your brain just sort of goes, wow, okay, stop.
So what do you mean God has been here all the time?
Yeah, but think about that. And the Bible describes that in different ways, right? The light came into darkness and the darkness rejected him. He came to his own people and his own people rejected him. And, the lost was found. And anyway, but so this little baby, and I don't know what other religion represents God that way. Or tries to, obviously, because every other religion is a false God. It's not real.
That is
so they believe in things that are false. They're fake. But what we believe is real. And there was a real God that's a supernatural God that we can't fully see. We see him through the eyes of faith. But even the disciples and the people that got to see Jesus himself as a baby, still, I would argue, didn't see the fullness of God, of the Godhead, of who he was. But yet, just that little bit at that time in history. And by the way, along with this theory is the timing, of when God decided to come to this earth. He could have earlier, he could have right after Adam and Eve sinned, he could have came then. He could have waited till now. I mean, in our minds, we might think, God, why didn't you wait till now? Because now we got computers and we got, internet, man. You could just get the message out in no time, as if we'd have something to contribute to God's plan, But my theory is that because of that interaction was so powerful, so amazing, beyond anything that we could ever imagine, that the God of heaven would come here and become a man, this man Jesus, that has every time we focus on it as a nation or as a city or as an individual or, as you shared, as a family, there is a spirit about it. And I think we got to remember that when we, myself especially, when I notice the things that I don't like about Christmas, sometimes the hustle and bustle and the spending and it's just also, the Santa Claus gets so carried away that we forget the real meaning here and we want to ditch Christmas maybe.
I'm not necessarily a Santa Claus person, but I did see a picture of a Santa Claus yesterday that I said, now that's what Santa Claus looks like.
It's really popular. Okay, you have a Menards your way in Grand Forks, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, probably a lot of stores have this, but I've noticed what's really in is these cows that are the ones with the furry face, almost like the cute brown hair going past their eyes.
Scottish.
What's that called?
Scottish Highlander.
Highlander, yeah. So my wife has always liked Scottish Highlander.
There's two of them in the bathroom. Two pictures of them in the bathroom.
Everybody likes Scottish Highlanders now. And so I went to
Hobby
Menards.
Lobby has pictures of them, yeah.
Yeah, so I go into Menards and there's this big blow-up doll of a Scottish Highlander. I'm thinking, okay, maybe that's a gift. The price tag's a bit high, but where are we going with that, by the way?
I don't know where you're going with that.
Well, back to the spirit of giving, I think that impact of the supernatural meeting the natural affects even people that don't even believe. Even atheists, everybody is impacted at some level
Even the Jews.
even the Jews, and even the Scrooges out there.
Yeah.
You know, the Scrooges who just, okay, but Scrooge was impacted. He was impacted and he reacted negatively, but he was impacted. And so that's why I say let's take advantage of that. Let's enjoy, let's draw that out in people, and let's be thankful and all that. And yes, we can still criticize the materialism, Santa Claus and all that, but not at the expense of the spirit of giving and the real meaning of God who gave himself. He gave his son, Jesus Christ.
I would say I might be different, but I don't think too much.
Yeah, you can be different.
Yeah. Growing up, Christmas was a big deal for us. I mean, for our family, and for me particularly, I just absolutely loved Christmas. I loved everything about it for that whole month. Actually, it wasn't just Christmas Eve or Christmas morning. It was a full month from Thanksgiving to Christmas, and even Thanksgiving I loved. I mean, I do remember, like I told you before, at age 5. And the reason I remember that is because it's something I've thought about all my life, not just looking back after 25 years. I thought about it all the time after that, and knowing Jesus. And I just wanted so much to know him. And when Christmas would come along, it was a great opportunity to just hear about Jesus. Every sermon was about Jesus. All the songs were about Jesus. I loved
drive by and all the nativity scenes.
Yeah, I just seriously really enjoyed that season. And I'm not so much of a person to put up a lot of decorations, and I've done it, but not so much. But at the same time, I mean, I loved driving around and seeing everybody's decorations, because it just helps a person to think more about Jesus rather than I see Jesus in the lights. I know that sounds strange for everybody, but it brings my heart to him, and I don't see Jesus in the lights.
I know what you're saying.
But seeing the lights brings me to think about him, and I really enjoy that. I mean, it actually many times brings me to tears to think about what God did, the Father, by allowing his Son to come to this earth to be a man, to be a man who would suffer and actually die for us.
Yeah.
I one day, Jeff, in our church, was an ELCA church, believe it or not, and they let me do this. Actually, I came from a pretty good, decent ELCA church, but I bought a nativity set in Israel made of olive wood. Folks, it cost me about $135 in Israel. Brought it home in my suitcases, which was just about impossible. It was, like each person was like 10 inches tall, 12 inches tall. I got home, and about 3 years later, I happened to see this same nativity scene, but a few more pieces, and in a department store in Grand Forks, and the price tag was $6,000. And all I could think was, why didn't I buy 10 sets of that and sell it?
You could retire.
Yeah. So anyway, but at the time I thought it was atrocious amount of money. But anyway, my point is that I set this scene up, and then I made this great big arrow out of a 8-foot plywood sheet, painted it yellow, and hung the arrow then from the nativity scene, pointing to the cross in the back of our church, or the front of our church, I should say. And people were, pretty like, wow, this is exactly what this really is, because that's why he was born. And
it's about the cross, like that song says.
Yeah, it's about the cross. And
Yeah.
I have time to say this. This is pretty cool, folks. In the Bible, the number 4 is related to judgment. I don't know why. That's the number 4. But the number 5 is related to grace. And so when you see the number 4 in the Bible, most of the time, if not all the time, it's referring to something that's been judged or going to be judged. And if you see the number 5 in the Bible, you're going to see that it's about grace. And so here's the fascination. Jesus dies. This is according to my calculations. I can be wrong. I don't think so, but here goes. Jesus dies exactly 4,000 years to the minute that Adam sinned. So he is judged on the 4. He rises from the dead 3 days later. That 3 days later, after the 4,000, becomes into the 5. And the 5 produces for us all the grace that we could possibly imagine. So Jesus fulfills even the number 4 and the number 5 by his death and his resurrection. It's just a very cool thought. I'm not saying I'm absolutely correct on that, but it appears from doing study of the scriptures that I've spent a lot of time on numbers in the scriptures, and that's what comes to be. So it's pretty cool.
If you think about it, then really that baby Jesus became a man, and all that he went through in not only fulfilling the law for us, basically living the life that we could not live.
That's correct.
Dying the death that we could not die, and then conquering not only death, but the devil and our sin.
And the judgment against us.
Yeah, so that we could enjoy the supernatural side of eternity forever without sin. And I think that's, back to that impact on people. That's why I think there's an indirect kind of an invisible impact on people during this season, because just think about what people go through to get home for Christmas or what they long for. And think of the military. Jason was in the military. He maybe, I don't know if you were ever overseas during Christmas time.
Yes, but, I spent a total, in 24 years, I spent a total of 4 years away from my family. I think I missed probably 5, maybe 6 Christmases.
Let me just take a guess. That's a particularly big deal at Christmas time. Being away from your family at say August or October, but Christmas, that's a bigger deal, I would think.
Yeah, actually, what's funny is I growing up, Christmas was such a huge deal for me. In fact, I grew up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, the Christmas city. Right?
Interesting.
Wow.
And they literally put Christmas trees on the light poles and put lights on every single street light in the town, both the north side and the south side. Yeah, and there's Advent wreaths, and you have to Google it, but these things are huge, these Advent wreaths with the big, and they have one, it's on what's called the Hill to Hill Bridge. It's this old truss bridge that sits on top, and then there's one at the public library. And the Christmas celebrations are amazing, right? And nothing like I've ever seen since. And
not North Dakota.
No, not in North Dakota. And then I spent 24 years in the military. And there actually was a time where I began to resent Christmas. All of the tradition of Christmas, it got to be because I spent I missed so much time away from my family that it brought back memories of, we're going to go get a suntan on the beach for Christmas, or we're sitting in the desert, right? There's a lot of beach there in the desert. And my wife, it also was a hard thing for her as well, because now she's the one who's got to carry Christmas for the both of us. She's got to set up the Christmas tree. She's got to do all the decorations, especially at the time when the kids were little. Our 3 of them were little. And it got to the point where Christmas was a labor and not a celebration of our Savior. And now that I'm 2.5 years post-military, and this year is really the first season where we're really allowing ourselves to celebrate Christ. I think I said that wrong, but really to celebrate the tradition and to be very much about, as a family, celebrating Christ. And I think that was probably there was more weight put in, now that I'm just thinking about it, there was more weight put in the traditions than it was in actually celebrating Christ.
Yeah. Well, and that's nice, a nice perspective to hear. And I think of the military. I also think about people who, some people, a loss can get a loss in their life, a loss of a loved one. Could be a parent, a grandparent, a child. Could be just a friend.
The first year they're without that loved one.
It's a deeper thing. But in that sense, I think that's where,
the 10th.
in my view, as long as we're focusing on Jesus, I think it is sometimes those surrounding traditions that really carry you into the next phase, the next year, or whatever. But it's just something to just glean, and let yourself soak in that for a little while. And so what I'm imagining is people that are away from home or away from their family still want to do a little tradition, whether it be the same kind of food that they made or same kind of cookies. In fact, I was listening to a guy talk about this on the radio just the other day. And apparently, of all our 5 senses, the ones that create the, deepest or most pronounced memory is smell.
Smell?
Between sight and sound and all our senses, apparently smell. So
I thought you were going to say taste after all of that buildup on food.
No, apparently it's the smells that. So my wife started a tradition in our family from the time the kids were, since we were married, where red cabbage, kind of a Danish tradition. And let me tell you, the type of red cabbage that, you come home from the tradition then at Christmas Eve service, and then you come home and the whole house smells, it takes a few years to get used to it. But once you're used to it, it's the best smell.
No way.
And And if I was ever in a situation where I was away from my family, I think I would go somewhere where I can get some red cabbage. So I think there's a lot of truth in that. But anyway.
Well, that's interesting because my mom was half Czech and Czechoslovakian, and she absolutely loved cooking cabbage. And there wasn't one of us, 7 kids, not one of us liked the cabbage. And seriously, when you mentioned the smell, we'd come from the barn, you guys, from the barn. And we actually loved the smell of the barn. We'd come into the house and we'd just about pass out. It's just the smell of cooked cabbage is just the worst smell ever.
Well, as we round third and head home on this, we got 2 minutes left. I just want to encourage people to, first of all, as Jason well pointed out, and you did too, Joel, find ways to let things remind you of Christ, whether it's the lights or whatever it is, to focus on Jesus, his whole life, but certainly don't miss the fact that God became a baby. Start there, and of course, it's about the cross. But surround that with traditions, especially if there's kids involved in your world, whether it's your family or your neighbors or just, let them experience traditions. It doesn't have to be the smell of cabbage, red cabbage. But it can be a lot of different things. And maybe it is
apple cider,
just the tradition of setting up a tree or, and we've gone back and forth on the gifts, but then beyond that, back to the spirit of giving. Is there a place? Is there a person? Is there a location? Is there a church? Is there a what'd you call it? Arboratory in your town?
Arboretum.
Is there somewhere where you can give?
Arboretum.
Give of yourself. It doesn't have to be, $6,000 nativity scene, but how about $6 item? Think of somebody that surprised them.
Even just giving to people that you might think don't have.
Yeah, it could be something they need, or
Yep.
it could be your time.
Yep.
Whatever. But this is really, and there, let that warmth, that warm, fuzzy Christmas feeling hit you, because I think we need those times in this hustle bustle life that we live. We live in our heads a lot. Some of us work with our hands, but let your heart experience God this
I
Christmas.
just one real fast one. Read the book of Luke starting December 1st, one chapter a day.
Okay, cool. There you go, guys. Luke 1, starting December 1st. God bless you all. Merry Christmas.